You know, I'm looking at the kind of messages because this is just not the first time we've always tried to use such avenues, traditional institutions and even religious bodies. But in recent times, the messages coming even from the pulpits, from churches, from mosques, from religious meetings, are not the kinds of messages Nigerians would call a message of hope or a message of non-violence. Aren't you worried?
Like every other Nigerian, I'm very much worried. I have been in politics for over 35 years. I started as a member of the youth wing of UPN, right from our own sitting room. I was part of Abiola's, as a member of SDP, Hope 93, right? I, of course, naturally, AD. Eventually, I found myself in PDP, but this is not a discussion for today. Like I said, I've been apolitical for over 2 years, which means I am well positioned, you know, to look at these issues. Yes, the messages have been there, but I'll tell you sincerely, sorry, we have to come up, you know, with a strategy that is re-strategized to send fresh messages. You have to convince the pastor, you know, you have to convince the imam, even the sheikhs, that there's looming disaster ahead, and let us together coin up a new message for Nigeria that can be broadcasted, you know, for the next weeks and then post-election. Yes. Now, we've had election in 5 states. A lot of people are talking about over militarization, the military. Sorry, some states were military.
Militarization. Yes.
Thank you. I personally think that we need more than that from our security agents. But my take is this: you cannot get the size of security operatives that were used for the state elections to now conduct presidential election in some of these states. And I think, or rather, what I'm prescribing is this: let us identify the hotbeds, and you can over-militarize if you want. You know, identify the hotbeds, the hot area. I don't want to mention some states, but I'm sure, you know, the viewers too will agree with me that in Lagos State, for instance, apart from exchange of blows, it will probably not have bombs because of anybody, you know. In fact, the Lagosians, the most important election is the governorship. And maybe I will seize this opportunity to correct certain impression some people had last week. I didn't call for the cancellation of all of the elections. I was particular about presidential election, and we were actually discussing, you know, presidential election. I don't want to start talking about postponement. I don't want to repeat the call for shelving, you know, the presidential election. It is late.
All right, so let's look at this matter, because what we've seen over time, and it still happens recently, yes, and who knows, it may happen after the general elections.
Yeah.
Politicians move from one party to the other.
Yes.
You know, almost at a reckless abandon.
Yes.
So have we actually addressed why is it that they move from one place to the other, if not to gravitate to where the honeypot is? So if they keep moving from one political party to the other,
yes,
and then maybe where they moved to or they moved from, they lost out. And so that concept of this winner takes all mindset, if we haven't addressed it, have we done anything meaningful?
Winner takes all. Okay, let us first look at the issue you're talking about. Politicians jumping from one party to another. As I said earlier, these people cannot survive in opposition for too long. By the time they spend 4 years in opposition, they will start running from one party to another, unless they are being empowered one way or the other by the people, by the government, you know, on ground. Yes, one major thing we probably will note in Nigeria is this: there is no ideologically oriented party politics. It's a question of, look, where can I fill my pocket? And most of them, there will be these probably 5 to 10% that are genuinely interested in politics, because they want good governance, they want visionary leadership. But most of them, they move from one party to another because they are tired of being in opposition. Now, there is no ideologically oriented party politics. You cannot jump from Democrat to Republican just like that in America. In UK, you cannot jump, from Labour to Conservative just like that, because those parties are ideologically oriented. In America, Republican Party is about, free market enterprise. It's about, Adam Smith theory. It's about everything that encourage maximum capital, every man for himself. So you see a lot of people in Republican, because that is their view, You will see the ones in Democrats, they are interested in social welfare. They are interested in, they're people-oriented, so to speak. At the end of the day, there is no ideology here.
I'm looking at sanctions, regulations, which we still haven't been able to put into perspective. When Chairman asked you the question at the start of this, one would understand the implication that there has always been rules guiding conduct of elections for the umpire, for the players, and even for the voters. Have we, especially the umpires and the regulators, been able to monitor and also sanction those that have erred in terms of advertorial, documentaries, campaign messages, and even in rallies? Who checks what goes out?
For me, honestly, the electoral law in itself was, produced by imperfect constitution. To enforce certain things, we must look at basic amendments in our constitution. A situation where you were talking about, winner takes all. Winner will take all, because the center is powerful. The center is too powerful.
But it doesn't make the regulators redundant or not to act when they should act.
I agree with you, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is that we should also look at long-term measures in tackling, these challenges. Long-term measures. If you're talking of enforcement of certain rules that are already part of the electoral process, to put such in place in the short period, we are less than 3 weeks to election, pre and post-election, we probably require some emergency actions, some of which I've already stated. If if channels, do not promote some utterances from devilish politicians, we are close to it. If the radio stations are, broadcasting anti-violence messages continuously till the time of this election, we are on course. And you mentioned one important thing, the law. Let us look at, the provisions of the law vis-a-vis the Constitution of the Federal Republic. And then we now, carefully pick up the laws we need to enforce and then establish certain deterrents. Nigerians, when you come up with tough deterrents, they obey. If you tell a Nigerian that if you steal money, you are going to jail for 20 years, I bet you a lot of corruption that goes on will change.